Hello, my name is Greta Harrison. Welcome to Born Fabulous Podcast Season 3, Episode 22. The theme of this season is young adults with intellectual disabilities living full lives of independence and interdependence. This episode features June and Jim Zoll and Melody and Bob Ruppel. It is the sixth of 8 episodes with the Zolls and the Ruppels, which is part of an in-depth series about marriage featuring parents, self-advocates with support staff, and an employer. Both the Zolls and the Ruppels are retired and have been married over 40 years. They are the parents of James, Zoll, and Kristen Rupple, who have been married over 5 years. James and Kristen have Down syndrome. Now please enjoy this clip of Love is a Potion. The lyrics are by Melissa Riggio, who was the focus of Season 1, Episodes 1 through 4. The music and voice are by Rachel Fuller. It takes 3 years for you to make it work. Are they living together during these 3 years, or are they dating?
No, they're just dating.
They're just dating. Okay. So then they lived together for 5 years. And I'm guessing that's a good trial period to see how this is all going to work, right?
Definitely. I think it's all, for us, we just did not really comprehend when they started dating where it was all going to go. I'll go back to what Melody said in that we followed their lead and what they wanted, and we tried to listen and facilitate what they wanted. And it just kind of happened naturally with our supports and listening to what it is that they wanted. When James wanted to move out, I was blown away, like Melody. His first year of living out of the house, I like to say that I cried every day for a year. Jim would walk in the door from work and I would just cry because how is he going to be safe? How is he going to cook? How is he going to clean? How's he going to, you allow a support team of people to come in and out of their apartment to help them live. You allow 5 or 6 other adult opinions on how they think your child should live, how they think your child should behave. And I say child, but they're young adults. But you as a parent, not give up or let them go. Your role as a parent becomes different when they live on their own. And for me, it was a little challenging to find out what my role as a parent was. During that first year, it was very hard to step back when other support people had opinions on things. Most of the time they were correct, that I needed to step back more. But what I found was, and I still believe today after them living together for 10 years, is what I've learned for me is that I'm the parent and I will always be the parent, and that the support people and the support team, they're paid employees and they're lovely, wonderful people that we grow to love and trust. But the bottom line is I'm in his life forever. And there's still some parenting ideas that I have that I can honor. because they will come and go and I will always be, and no one loves them like us. So I've learned that, and it almost has given me permission to continue to be the parent, but to still step back and listen to what it is, that he wants. And I hope that made sense, but it took me a while to get to that point. So the first year was a little challenging for me.
Melody and Bob, your thoughts?
I didn't struggle in the ways that June struggled, I think mainly because of having such a big family, that Kristen already wasn't always the main focus. Kristen doesn't always ask for help. I guess that's the biggest thing for us, is she considers herself to be pretty competent, and she is. I mean, she's super organized and motivated, and really the first year was like when your high school student goes off to the dorm, they eat anything they want and they could gain 15 pounds. I mean, it was that kind of thing. Like, I don't want you telling me what to do. I moved out now, I don't want you bugging me. I'm an adult. I can do what I want to do. I mean, it was
pretty typical story of any,
going off
to the dorm,
like going off to a dorm. I mean, there really was a lot of that. So I think for me, it was learning to navigate that, a way to help her without overstepping and without her thinking I'm telling her what to do, which is pretty tough for me, because I'm like, come on, Kristen, this isn't going to work. But she had to work through that, even with the aids and still to this day, that can be a thing we have to talk about. The aids are there to help you. If you don't have an aid, you can't live out on your own. So they're not telling you what to do. They're trying to help you, navigate life and do all the things that you want to accomplish. So I think we still work on that all the time, because, she doesn't want to be told what to do. She wants to be treated like an adult. So it's a fine line to walk, because she does need help and she doesn't drive. And, they had to learn about nutrition and all those things that all young adults have to learn about.
So, like, you just brought up the nutrition, and what about grocery shopping? Who taught Kristen how to grocery shop?
Well, she grocery shopped with her dad because her dad had to learn to grocery shop when he retired.
Yeah, I took over a lot of things when I retired. Melody went back to work.
So he was going, well, how do I grocery shop, basically?
Yeah.
And so him and Kristen would do the grocery shopping.
Well, and Kristen and I are both very, systematic.
Yeah.
So we had charted out all the aisles and what's where and that kind of stuff. And to the points that we've earlier made, I would take her and I'd give her the list and I'd drop her off at one corner of the grocery store and have her meet me at the other with a full grocery cart full of everything. And when she got there, we'd figure out what she didn't get, or what she got wrong. And then we'd go fix it. And then over time, she could just do it all herself. But they have their groceries. That's a good thing you brought that up, because that's so key, obviously, to grocery shopping. They can't drive, and it's the key to have food and good food. When she was at home, I would try to teach her nutrition, and she didn't want anything to do with it. Once she moved out and had some aides teaching her about nutrition, that's a whole different story. Now, all of a sudden, Dad, look what I learned, and I'm doing all these things. And I said, all those things I've been trying to get you to do, but you've been too stubborn because I'm telling you what to do. So, but what they developed really is a whole system that June could walk you through in detail, but it would probably take a lot of time too. But they have a whole system that they've worked out with the aides of how they figure out their menus, how they figure out what food they have in the house to make certain recipes, what they need to buy at the store, what's perishable, what's not. They go through a whole routine of this stuff, brings the food home, and they have like a week's menu, and they cook it all up, and with the help of the aides. And they do better at it than any of us do.
That is for sure.
Yeah, they're pretty incredible. So they have a whole support system for just the grocery shopping. June?
That's great that you learned how to grocery shop with your daughter then.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's great. I think every husband should be able to do that. I've been married 43 years, and I have to send my husband a picture of the item in a text message.
Now, Greta, don't get all the husbands in America mad at me here. Okay? We still have to stick together a little bit.
Just saying, it's a skill. Okay, so I love that you guys learned that together. Okay, now you've mentioned the support that they have there. Okay, give all of us a visual picture. Like, you mentioned 5 or 6 people. I'm assuming that they rotate. How does that work? Could you give us a picture of that? How many agencies are involved? Now, just for people who are listening, I'm reminding you this is in California, that has excellent services. Not every state is so fortunate, but please let us know what that looks like.
June, you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sure. So we have it's called a supported living agency. We have one. The supported living agency is called LifeWorks, and they're funded by our regional center. What the supported living agency does is they do the hiring and the paying of our James and Kristen support staff. So what the LifeWorks would do is find and interview a person that they think would be good for James and Kristen's team. They send that person to James and Kristen's home, and us parents meet with James and Kristen. So the 6 of us will interview this person as being a possible person that will support James and Kristen. And so ultimately, the way James and Kristen's support team works, they need to have 4, 5, they've had up to 6 people on their team that the supported living agency hires. So James and Kristen, it was determined that their support would come in the form of 3 different shifts during the course of one day. So the first shift might be through Monday through Friday. Looks a little different because of work, because of different things. Monday through Friday, it might be 3 shifts. It will be a morning shift, maybe through breakfast. I'll just throw these times out there. They could be different times and fluctuate. The first shift might be 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., getting them through breakfast and lunch if there's any cooking involved on the stove, helping them get to their prospective jobs, housework, laundry, whatever the day might bring. And again, those times can fluctuate. The second shift might be 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., getting them through dinner and more living skills, grocery shopping, whatever. Monday through Friday can be very different. The third shift is typically 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So they have an overnight person. 6 days a week. They do have one night alone. It's probably their favorite night of the week because they have no support person there. James and Kristen do their best, I think, when they get their alone time as a couple. They love to be alone. So that would be the third shift. The weekends are a little different because it's more social activities, and the times could be different for the support staff. They do their weekly menus on Sundays. It's fine-tuned from the menu. They do their shopping list and shop on Mondays. That's pretty routine, but other than that, the support team and the times that they work tend to fluctuate to James and Kristen's needs. James and Kristen know that during the interview process, when that prospective person comes to the apartment, they know that they've got the power to hire. They know that the support people work for them. They know, I mean, it's good that they know that, but to the point that, anyway, I'm going to get a little confused here in my explaining. It's good to let James and Kristen know they've got the power to do all that, but sometimes it's not so good that they know they have the power to do all of that.
Does the power go to their heads a little bit?
Well, yes. And what it does is make time for conversation as to why are you having such a hard time with this support person. You know, the support people, when they're hired, they my hat goes off to them, because they walk this very fine line of honoring James and Kristen's independence and honoring that when they work, they're coming into James and Kristen's home. And yet they are also expected to lead James and Kristen and guide them with the correct, with the appropriate behaviors and learning skills. And so the support people, they do a great job, I think. They don't necessarily come in with that skill, but the support people learn how to support in a respectful, loving way.
Do you have trouble with turnover?
There have been times that we don't now. We've learned really what to look for in hiring. We're still learning that. We have had to fire a couple of people, over 5 years. It's so we do pretty good with keeping.
There have been
really
a few
good
instances, few times where we've been shorthanded,
people.
and it's been difficult to bring the team back up to the correct number of people.
And that doesn't have anything to do with the team or anything. A lot of times it has to do with what's happening in the economy, the pandemic, various external
reasons.
Yeah.
Sure.
Wages, etc.
Now they help with transportation, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's a huge help. But having said that, in your conversation organically, you've already shown that James and Kristen can ride the train. They can do many things on their own, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Bob, you brought up something very good, the pandemic. How did the pandemic affect them? Because that was during their married time. How did that affect them? And I skipped the wedding, so we will definitely have to get to the wedding too. I didn't mean to skip that. But talk about the pandemic, and then we'll talk about the wedding.
Well, we made the decision to bring them home, just because all those aides had families of their own, and to have that many people going in and out. And of course, back then we didn't know, as much as we do now. And both Kristen and James are susceptible to respiratory infections. And so that made us extremely paranoid. So we lived through it. June and I talked a lot on the phone. We rotated. They would have...
It evolved, actually, but let's go back to rotation. But the same way everybody evolved through the pandemic, our approach as the four parents with our young adults evolved too. So we came up with some different approaches along the way as the pandemic progressed. So,
but basically, they would spend like 4 days here together with us, and then they'd go to June's for 4 days, and then they might have a few days where they're separated and at their parents' house. But we made the decision that they were a married couple. Yeah. And that they needed to be treated that way, and that we needed to keep them together as much as possible. And so we did it. It was not easy, especially when you're not used to having them at home and having to cook every day and have more groceries in the house. And, especially for me, like the cooking every day thing, I'm like, I'd be calling June going, enough of this.
I think generally Kristen and James sailed through it remarkably well.
Yes.
You would think they would be really freaked out and their schedules could be turned upside down, or they wouldn't be able to handle it. they just adjusted. They were so flexible, and they loved living in hotel Rupple and hotel
Zoul.
and having their laundry done, and all kinds of good stuff. And they could just hang out, and so
Yeah, and I might add that we were able to keep most all of the support people by keeping them on the payroll by Zooming. We really got in. James and Kristen each got their own Zoom accounts to keep the support people on Zoom. So there was reading, there was art, there was cooking. We did a lot with the support people on Zoom in order to keep them on the payroll.
Yeah,
That's
through
good.
that, then they were also able to bring their friends into that too, whether it was a book, Kristen's book club, or whatever. It expanded to be a great facility for the aides, but also for their friends to participate as well.
And to this day, Kristen and her friends Zoom every Wednesday for half an hour, even though COVID's, dealing with that. They still do that. And then Kristen started a book club with one of her aides, and they would just over Zoom, they would pick a book and they would read out loud, and they would take turns reading. And it was so good for Kristen that has expanded into where they've put together flyers, put them out in the LifeWorks agency. James has joined, other people have joined the book club. And so Kristen's basically running a book club with the help of her aides once a week.
Yeah.
And they're like on their, the bigger group, they're on their second book now. I mean, Kristen, I don't know how many books her and Usha read, but
it's really helped her reading.
It's really helped her reading. Now there's other kids that have gotten involved and enjoying it too. And so like the book that they just finished reading, they're getting together at someone's house to watch the movie.
That's great. So do they read on Zoom or do they read together?
Yeah, they read on Zoom and they take turns reading.
That's great. I'm going to talk to her about that.
It's been a really great thing, and like I'm in a book club and she knew that. And so she's always liked to read. It's really evolved into this really fun thing.
I love that. And I love that the support that they have. So now when you brought them home, how long did that last that they were going back and forth and all of that? I mean, did they all get vaccinated, everybody?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And,
so they
initially they each went to their own respective parents' home. And then as June said, we all realized they're a couple and they should be together. And so then we worked out a schedule for them to move back and forth every few days between the different parents.
And that lasted for what, a year or so, or less than a year?
We couldn't do it for a year.
So it continued to evolve back into the apartment. So when after Delta kind of diminished, which was a lot more lethal, etc., and the virus kept getting weaker and weaker, although more contagious, we got to where we said, okay, cross our fingers, we're going to have one aide come in, and that aide doesn't have any kids, and going to wear the mask and the whole thing. And then that eventually expanded out to more aides as the pandemic went on, and to where they were back in their normal schedule again, ultimately.
And everybody was vaccinated. All the aides were vaccinated. Yeah. They wiped down surfaces. They did all those things. Kristen and James eventually both did get COVID.
Pretty much after it was
but
over.
Like 2.5, 3 years into it.
Yeah. And Kristen loved it. She loved having COVID because she has allergies, so she has a cough all the time anyway, and all it did was make her cough a little bit worse, but she felt great. And she had all the streaming services. She could Zoom with all her friends and do her book club and all the stuff. And we would serve her meals at the door, and then she'd put her dirty dishes out. And she just stayed in that room for a full week. I had all kinds of, HEPA conditioners in there and opened the windows for fresh air, all kinds of things. But she loved it. And because fortunately, again, it was very mild, for her. And I think James had a little harder time, maybe, June.
Yeah, no, but I would say he did love the TLC and the room service for
Yeah.
sure. But by the time it was over, it was so hard to get a negative test for him to go home. He was
Yeah.
ready to go home, and we just ultimately let them go home when they were still testing positive, but no symptoms for a very long time. And we found that that was the thing to do. So yeah, we made it through.
You made it through. You had to adapt. And so they've
Yeah.
got one more experience under their belt.
Yeah.
So tell me this, are your young adults their own guardians? Or do you have powers of attorney with them? Or
We have medical powers of
okay.
attorney.
So
But
they are
that's
so he's his own guardian then.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and
same with Kristen.
So is Kristen.
Okay.
Like I can't speak to whether that's the best choice or not. You kind of go around and around.
Everybody's different, and I understand there's different levels of disability and support, but since they're so
Well,
independent, I
To
just
tell you the truth, because when we set up our living trust, the attorney was you really need to have conservatorship. I don't care how high functioning your kid is, you need to have this. That was her attitude. But Kristen was like 18, 19 years old then. At that point, if we had gone to court and she had to say out loud, I'm going to let my parents tell me what to do, she wouldn't have done it. I mean, I don't think she would have done it. She would have said, I'm not doing that. Where now, if you could explain it to her and say, these are the reasons why, I think she'd be fine with it. But we're always on the fence on whether that is the best choice or not. You're more worried about what could come up. I think in the long run, medical power of attorney is probably important.
Mm-hmm. Very, very important. But since Jenny Hatch in her case, which by the way, she lives in my city, her case changed attorneys. They no longer automatically go to that default. They now present the other options first because it was just the automatic default before. So that has changed. You might not, your attorney might have said something differently if it had been in the last 10 years, I think. Thank you for listening to episode 22 of Born Fabulous Podcast's third season. I hope you enjoyed it and want to hear more. Short video clips from most episodes are available on our YouTube channel and on bornfabulouspodcast.com. You can also hear all released episodes of Born Fabulous Podcast on YouTube now. In episode 23, you will hear the Zolls and the Ruppels discuss the wedding, sex, and parenting. Their honesty mixed with humor is very refreshing. Please follow and like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd be honored if you would leave a review wherever you heard this podcast. Now, please enjoy this clip of Love is a Potion. The lyrics are by Melissa Riggio, who was the focus of Season 1, Episodes 1 through 4. The music and voice are by Rachel Fuller.